Welcome back to my belated annual Oscar series wherein I talk about all the Oscar categories except for the short film ones. I talk about all the nominees and who I think deserves to win the Oscar, and then I talk about my official prediction for who I think will win the Oscar for that category. But of course, for now I'm going to be talking about the Academy Awards from last year because I didn't get to do it then. So I'm going to continue where I left off with Best Sound Editing. But before we get into the nominees, let's define sound editing first, because some people understandably get it confused with sound mixing, but they are actually pretty different things. So by my understanding, sound editing is, to put it simply, sound effects, sounds that have to be created and put into the film in post-production. So the way I personally judge sound editing is by how the sounds themselves sound, how they come across, if they represent the thing that they sound like well, and if they give me the emotional response that the sounds want to give me. My favorite examples for sound editing are the dinosaurs from Jurassic Park, which, they stitch together the sounds of a bunch of different animals to come up with the dinosaur sounds, and they sound really unique, but they also sound really scary, so that worked. And then surprisingly enough, the sounds of the Transformers from the very first Michael Bay Transformers, because when they would transform, it would sound like a combination of both mechanical movement and organic movement, so I thought that was cool. But for more examples, let's look at the nominees from last year. So the nominees are Mad Max Fury Road, Mark A. Mangini and David White; The Martian, Oliver Tarney; The Revenant, Martin Hernandez and Lon Bender; Sicario, Alan Robert Murray; and Star Wars The Force Awakens, Matthew Wood and David Acord. Now, based on this list of nominees, this was actually a really hard choice for me between the top two. The other three, for me, aren't really too remarkable, so it was really just like a two-film race. So first, in terms of who I think should have won the Oscar, at 5th place, I'm going to put The Martian. Much like The Martian's nomination for Best Production Design, it feels a little misplaced in this category, because if the sound is remarkable, it's more remarkable for its sound mixing, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong though, this movie does sound great, and I have no problems with the film on a technical level. It's just that nothing stands out to me as best sound editing worthy in terms of sound effects that are in the film, so that's why it's at number 5. Now at number 4, I'm going to put The Revenant, and honestly this is sort of the same thing here as with The Martian. I think most of the sound work, at least the really good sound work, seems to be done in camera. Although, to be fair, the bear scene in the movie, the bear does sound incredibly real and scary, and that scene has a lot of crunching bones and tearing flesh, so that's what puts it one spot above The Martian, but still overall, in terms of sound editing, these other films just did more. At number 3, I'm going to put Sicario. Now, this is one of those movies where every single gunshot feels mercilessly painful, and every gunshot feels lethal, and that's how I think all guns should sound in films. Again, I have no problem with Sicario on a technical level. It just gets number 3 because there's not too much action in the film for the sound to be flaunted, but the sound that is there still reinforces the pure shock of being shot. And now we get to the top 2, and here we go. This is the tough choice for me because these two films have great sound editing, and I think they both deserve their nominations, but they're also very different, so it's hard to put one over the other. But at number 2, I'm going with my gut. I'm putting Mad Max Fury Road. One indication for how important sound editing was for this film was the fact that this movie was supposed to be a silent film at one point. George Miller's original vision for the film, I believe, was to have it in black and white and to have no dialogue and just pure action. And it still does come across in the final product just how important the sound is. For one, all the cars in the movie, I believe most car sounds in any movie are added in post, because if you try to record those sounds on set, it's gonna be impossible to clean. It's gonna overwhelm all the dialogue. But the sounds of the cars in this movie, they really feel just jacked up on gasoline, or they feel really fragile because every single moving part in these vehicles is given sound, and then when these cars crash into each other, it just feels really painful and really fun. The explosions, which I do believe are real, still do feel very big, and I think the biggest sort of thing sound-wise in this movie is the big electrical storm near the beginning, where they do this thing where they suck out the sound at certain points, and then the rest of the time it's just all chaos, and it's really, really cool. But at first place in the movie that I actually think deserved to win the Oscar was Star Wars The Force Awakens. And really just because it has such a wide and varied soundscape for them to play with. And of course, this movie has all those iconic Star Wars sounds that we've come to love since like the 70s. You know, with all the TIE fighters and the lightsabers, and just every single sound here brings you back to a time when you were growing up with Star Wars, and so they use that really well. But what really excited me about The Force Awakens was the fact that there were a lot of new sounds as well that really fit with the universe perfectly. Like, two examples I can think of are, number one, Kylo Ren's lightsaber. What makes his lightsaber so unique is just how unstable it is, and you can hear it in the sound design of just, you know, it feels like it's about to burst from the handle. And the other sound effect I really enjoyed was just the deep bass of the Force when it's being used or channeled by these characters. I believe that the previous Star Wars films didn't really have this sort of sound effect, but I appreciate the stronger emphasis on the Force because it is a movie called The Force Awakens, and it just makes the Force feel more like a living entity. And in terms of who I thought was going to win the Oscar, I actually did also put my bet on Star Wars The Force Awakens. Of course, it went to Mad Max Fury Road, which is just fine with me, but I really thought that they would give it The Force Awakens because of all the nostalgia, and also just because I thought that the Academy would do what they usually do, which is they give sound editing to the same movie that won Best Visual Effects, and my bet for visual effects was also Force Awakens, but of course I got that category wrong, and I also got this category wrong, but whatever. Alright, so those were my thoughts on the Best Sound Editing category from last year. What do you guys think about the category? What did you think about the nominees? Who did you think should have won? Who did you think was going to win? Whatever you thought, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.